Get ready, Staten Island.
Tonight, the Ferry Hawks host the Hagerstown Flying Boxcars with first pitch at 6:30. Thursday, it's a doubleheader starting at 4 p.m. with Jewish Heritage Night. As for this game, the Ferry Hawks will play as the Staten Island Menches. Friday at 7 p.m., it's soccer night and kids glow around the bases postgame. Saturday at 6:30, it's Broadway night with postgame fireworks and Broadway rave. Sunday at 1:30, it's Military Appreciation Day and the kids run around the bases.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
What did you steal?
Secrets.
Disclosure Day is Steven Spielberg's best film in 20 years.
Are they people?
No.
Are they human?
Oh my God.
Spielberg does this better than anybody in history.
I can see them. They're coming.
Disclosure Day. Rated PG-13. Some material may be inappropriate for children under 13. In theaters Friday. Get tickets now.
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
People love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
And I'm Jake Novak, live with you in for Roger Stone this evening. Very much appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. And of course, you heard the breaking news at the top of the hour, and probably the last couple hours you've been hearing that the United States has resumed attacks on Iran. In the words of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, we are, quote, tapping Iran, like tapping them on the shoulder. So this isn't necessarily a punch in the face or a rabbit punch or dropping an anvil on their head. I'll try to come up with some more Looney Tunes references if I can. But this is not a major whack right now, but it's something. And it may be the biggest since the ceasefire ended of all the what we're calling self-defense attacks, defensive actions that we've done a few times now. Sounds like this is kind of the biggest one, but certainly not at the level of what we had before the ceasefire in April. And, you know, this is important to keep following. It feels like President Trump is very publicly, and he does almost everything very publicly, as you know, whether he wants to be or not, because he's so public with his thought processes and things like that. This is the most accountable president we've ever had in our lifetimes. That and the fact that he gets sued every 5 seconds and challenged on anything he says. If he says 2 + 2 is 4, they will literally sue to say it's 5. So he's very accountable, but it's possible that he kind of always knew this conclusion was happening. But to the untrained eye, it just seems like President Trump has been very publicly coming to the conclusion that, I guess we can't make a deal with these people. We've tried everything. We've waited them out. We've given them other incentives. We've proved that we can stop Israel from attacking in certain areas for a few days at least if we want to, and longer if there's a real deal. Things like that. And yet we're still not getting them to sign on the dotted line and give up what they believe to be their key to sovereignty, which is the nuclear material. You know, you can understand why Iran doesn't want to give it up, but it doesn't make it any more or moral that they're not giving it up. I mean, if they were decent human beings, they would be looking at other things anyway, but that's certainly not who we're dealing with right now. So that's the state of affairs right now. Gun to my head, do I think we're going back to full-on war with the Iranians tomorrow or now? No. And I always, as many of you know who listen to this program when I fill in or other programs on these networks, you know that I always look to see what the people with skin in the game are telling us. They're not always right, but the oil traders usually have a decent take on what's going to happen next in these kinds of things. And right now we're seeing oil prices go up by $2 a barrel and change. And if they really thought the full-on war was going to start again, we'd be at $8, $9 up on oil. That's just a fact. Doesn't mean they're right. They may be wrong. But they have more to lose if they're wrong. So you got to look at what they're saying and what they're doing with the understanding that they have a little bit more of an inside track than you or I have. And that's okay. If you put up the money, you get to have membership has its privileges. You're willing to have your living made on a day's trades one way or the other. I don't begrudge you any extra knowledge that you glean from mining more deeply because you have more riding on it. So that's what I would say is where we are right now. But spoiler alert, you can count me among the people who are going to say there's never going to be a workable deal with Iran. And it's not because of something in their DNA or something racial here or their religion. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just that that's what this regime has always been set up to do, to start wars functionally, not only in their ideology, and it's part of their ideology, but also functionally. This is how Iran functions. This regime doesn't know what else to do with itself unless it's funding foreign proxy terrorism, funding Hezbollah, ordering Hezbollah around, ordering some of their other proxies around like the Houthis, paying for terrorism, using Qatar as a third party to help buy influence in this country, and boy, have they bought influence. You know, you turn on the TV every night in this country and look at the mainstream channels, and it's like Qatar writes the rundowns for these TV stations. I used to work at some of them before Qatar took them over, mostly, and I was working in mostly financial news, and Qatar doesn't bother with that too much. But I can tell you that when I was at CNN back in the early 2000s, man, they were following a narrative that they were getting from a bunch of organizations like CARE. They used to start sending us emails every day. And, you know, when people say, oh, that's not true, Jake, I say, you really have to know who you're talking to here. I was there, and I know. But I just don't think that Iran, this regime, is ever going to make a deal that's workable. And I think President Trump is either very publicly coming to that realization himself, or he already was there a long time ago, and he's been playing out this string in the hopes of easing the massive pain of higher gasoline prices, which have been going down very steadily now for going on 3 weeks. The national average gasoline price right now is about $4.15. Yes, that's still $1.17 more than it was the day before the war. I get it. But it's quite a bit down. It's about 40 cents down from the high, and that's a lot. You got a 20-gallon tank, you're paying $8 less to fill up your tank today. That's significant. Okay? Simple math right there, folks. Nevertheless, it's still not where we want to be. We've been very fortunate that we've had very small casualty lists, only 13 Americans, and I don't mean only to take anything away from the 13 who died, but you know what I'm talking about. Don't be a nudnik about this. If you don't know what nudnik means, look it up. It's a great Yiddish word. Sometimes foreign words, either an Italian word or a Yiddish word, are just better than an English word. Sometimes even a French word or a French phrase. So don't be a nudnik about this. You know what I mean when I say we've been lucky to have only 13 dead in this war. You know that I'm not devaluing the 13 who died. But come on, we've been at war with a major military power in this world, one that's a nation that has been focused on military actions and killing people for 40 plus years. We're lucky that we don't have more dead. We just are, thank God. But it's not where we want to be. We don't want to have to continue this way. But anyone who's blaming the United States for this or anything else like that just doesn't understand the Iranian regime. They just don't. And I think President Trump has always understood it. Maybe he hoped for some type of surprise resolution to this. Maybe he was hoping for Iran's version of Admiral Donitz. For those of you who know the history of the end of Nazi Germany, Admiral Donitz was someone who kind of took over the military after Hitler's death, or when he just started to go into the bunker, and he wanted to make a peace deal with the United States, and rightfully we only accepted unconditional surrender, and he went for it. You know, good for him. But I don't think there's an Admiral Donitz in the Iranian regime. I just don't. And this is where we are right now. I think that the American people are coming to this realization. You know, I'm looking at what the mainstream media is doing here, and you can see they're trying to walk away a little bit from the attacks on Iran right now. Some of it might be because some of these evening shows on the mainstream channels are taped, which is just unconscionable to me. You know, you have a nation at war. You call yourself a news program. What are you taping your evening news programs for exactly? Weekend, I can understand. I go live on the weekends myself, 5 a.m. Saturday and Sunday and 7 p.m. Sunday night, because tape shows, by the way, are more trouble than they're worth. Just to give you a little inside baseball about the news business. You do a tape show, and then if you have any conscience in the world, you go to sleep that night terrified that some big news story is going to happen that will make your tape show ludicrous. I'd rather not. And it's called news for a reason. But you see, they're walking away from this Iran story. I'm looking at MS now, and they're doing an entire main segment about how President Trump has low approval ratings. Well, that would be interesting if, A, he were running for re-election, which he's not. It'd also be more interesting if there was some alternative out there. I'm not going to buy any of this stuff about President Trump having low approval ratings until there's a leader of the Democratic Party who has high approval ratings, and there isn't one. And there isn't any Democratic Party policy that has high approval ratings either. This is just straight up hatred of Trump, hatred of, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, so I'm going to say I don't like the way the president's doing his job, and yada, yada, yada. It's kind of nice to have a president who isn't worried about the polls every day and is trying to stick to the courage of his convictions. And doing it very publicly. That's the other thing. You can have a president who believes in some wacko theories and wacko policies that the people don't support, and that wouldn't be good. But President Trump is telling you what his policy is all the time. And while some people say, he's been going back and forth about Iran, I actually don't think he is. He's making it clear every day he wants certain things to be agreed to by Iran, and they're not doing it. You want to be angry at someone, be angry at Iran for not giving us a clear signal one way or the other and not giving in on a very basic thing. Give us the nuclear material. If they've been willing to do that, there's a lot they could keep. But they haven't been willing to do it. That's not Trump's fault. It really isn't. I'm sorry. I know you want to blame Trump for everything, folks. Some folks out there. That's not Trump's fault. And Iran, with nuclear weapons, either to use them themselves or to give them to other people, is not acceptable. I don't care how isolationist you are or how much Rand Paul or Tucker Carlson or other crap that you read tells you. Sorry. It's not acceptable. It's just not. We have something called a jet airplane. I don't know if you've heard of it, which makes the world's borders much smaller and the distances in the world much smaller. We have other things as well that makes the idea that any country, no matter how many oceans surround it, can be isolated from this kind of nonsense. It's just ludicrous. Doesn't mean we have to be involved in every little thing. But, nuclear weapons, kind of a red line. Are we invading a country because we don't like their healthcare policy? Okay, then you have a point. But that's not what this is. I would love to get you guys to weigh in on this on our second half hour. 800-848-9222 is the number. I will be taking calls this evening. But when we come back, I want to get a little bit more domestic myself and talk about so many of the raw nerves this LA mayoral election has touched for me, and I'm sure many of you are in the same boat. And I want to put it into an important historical context for all of you. I'm Jake Novak in for Roger Stone in the Stone Zone tonight. We'll be right back.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
He likes politics and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone. Where's Roger?
One summer moment can change a child's life. Through Toys for Tots Give and Go initiative, your support provides books, games, toys, and outdoor adventures that spark curiosity, creativity, and a love of nature. Whether it's fishing, learning a new sport, reading under a tree, or playing with friends, these moments build confidence and lifelong memories. For too many children, those moments never come. You can help change that this summer. Visit toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots, delivering hope beyond the holidays. One summer moment can change a child's life. Through Toys for Tots Give and Go initiative, your support provides books, games, toys, and outdoor adventures that spark curiosity, creativity, and a love of nature. Whether it's fishing, learning a new sport, reading under a tree, or playing with friends, these moments build confidence and lifelong memories. For too many children, those moments never come. You can help change that this summer. Visit toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots, delivering hope beyond the holidays.
June is Men's Health Month. Red Apple Audio Networks is proud to recognize Men's Health Month. A reminder that taking care of your health is one of the strongest things you can do.
This is Joe Concha. Physical activity is one of the best things you can do for your overall health. Exercise supports heart health, improves mood, strengthens muscles and bones, and helps reduce stress. The good news is you don't need a gym membership or intense workouts to benefit. Walking, stretching, biking, swimming, stretching, or even some yard work can make a positive difference. Experts recommend about 30 minutes of movement most days of the week, but every step counts. If you spend most of your time sitting, try standing up and move around every hour. Small changes create lasting habits. Taking care of your body through movement helps boost energy, improve sleep, and support long-term health at every age.
Join Red Apple Audio Networks in supporting healthier lives from men everywhere. Learn more about Men's Health Month and take charge of your health today. Listen to this podcast now
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
One Tough Podcast with Bo Dietl.
Now, part of Mondami's agenda, this green agenda, he don't know what the hell he's talking about. The problem with the people are the services. Broken windows, lead paint where kids are eating and being poisoned, poor ventilation, and poor security. These are the things you should be dealing with, Mondami.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform. The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Stone Zone. Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?
Here's Roger Stone.
And good evening. I'm Jake Novak with you on this Wednesday night live in for Roger Stone here on the Stone Zone. 800-848-9222. Like to hear what you have to say about the renewed attacks on Iran, anything else going on. And what I think to me is certainly not an ignored domestic story. It's been getting a lot of coverage, but I don't even think even the people who have been covering it as angrily as you think are putting this in enough perspective. This is this LA election, particularly the mayoral primary that was finally basically called yesterday. For Karen Bass, the winner, and presumably Nithya Raman as coming in second place, and they'll go up against each other in November, and Bass is going to win. That's going to be a foregone conclusion, and that'll be that. What we know is that the mail-in balloting that changed the result of this election, Spencer Pratt was solidly in second on election night, and for a few days after that, we know that the mail-in ballot numbers are just not logical. You can't have someone winning in certain districts where they weren't winning at all before. The argument could be made, well, these mail-in ballots tend to be more Democrats, and these Democrats votes, so that means the Democrats' votes are going to get boosted to the end. But not for the third-place Democrat. They would be much more in line with the way other Democrats voted on Election Day. And there is proof of the fraud. We have videos of people getting homeless people on Skid Row to sign ballots and that whole thing. This is no small thing. It's not a joke. I don't think most of the people reporting it have been making it a joke, but I don't think that they know how huge this is. Because we've seen this before in American history. A couple of months ago, I came on this program, also filling in for Roger, and explained to the audience as best I could, explained to you as best as I could, that we are at the bleeding Kansas stage of this sadly developing civil war in our country, where we are seeing sporadic violence among citizens. It's a little bit different in that also we're seeing violence among certain groups targeting federal agents, like we're seeing these attacks on ICE agents. But for those of you who don't know your history, pro-slave and anti-slave groups of civilians in Kansas were for many years killing each other over the issue. And what maybe you don't know, even if you've heard of Bleeding Kansas and you read about it, you don't know that ballot box stuffing was also part of that conflict. So to me, this is really scary. Stuffing a ballot box as blatantly as the Democrats have done in this election in Los Angeles to push out Spencer Pratt. And they did it really blatantly. It was ugly. for someone to be crying on election night knowing that she lost, that's what Nithya Raman did, and then to have these votes come in inexplicably for her, where she was even beating Karen Bass over and over in these mail dumps. And it looks like they had a bunch of harvested ballots ready to go for any one candidate they wanted to boost. So if for some reason Spencer Pratt came in first and Nithya Raman was in second, they would have boosted Bass. Or Raman and Bass. And if some reason Raman had come in first and Pratt was, they would have done anything they could to knock out Pratt. They would have had the ballots for the candidate who needed it most. And of course, there's proof of this. Don't say, oh, there's no proof. Yes, there is. There's videos of it. And there's also something called common sense. And I use this metaphor a lot because it's important to remember. If I see someone coughing up blood on the street for minutes at a time, I'm going to say that person needs a doctor, needs to go to the hospital, and is very sick. Am I a doctor? Do I have a diagnosis? Of course not. Once again, only a nudnik would bring that up and say, well, you don't know that they're sick. Yeah, I do. So does anyone with the brain. Start using your common sense. Would that work in a court of law? Am I going to be able to get someone convicted in a court of law over that? No, but this is not a court of law. This is a court of just the world and common sense. And I would like to see the evidence put together for this. This is not a joke. And I have two more examples to talk to you about. Again, 800-848-9222. Want to hear your thoughts on all of these stories. I'm Jake Novak in for Roger Stone. This is the Stone Zone.
June is Black Music Month. We don't just celebrate music, we feel it.
From the streets of Brooklyn came a storyteller unlike any other. The notorious B.I.G. Christopher Wallace possessed a voice so commanding and a flow so effortless that he changed rap music forever. Painted vivid portraits of hustling, ambition, temptation, and triumph with cinematic precision.
The more money you make, the more problems you get. I gotta rap about it. And that's one of the bad things about the game is when you get large, even your friends will turn against you.
His debut album, Ready to Die, became an instant classic, while Life After Death cemented his legend.
Biggie, 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 can't you see?
He brought East Coast hip-hop roaring back to prominence during the 1990s and became one of the defining voices of his generation. Tragically killed just 24 years old, Biggie left behind a catalog that still sets the standard.
Celebrating Black Music Month. The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Stone Zone. Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?
Here's Roger Stone.
It's just after 8:30 on the East Coast. I'm Jake Novak filling in for Roger Stone this evening on the Stone Zone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to fill in for him and to talk to you this evening. I was talking about this LA vote rigging story and how serious this is, because it follows that pattern that I've been talking about for years, really, that we're kind of in the bleeding Kansas stage of our fracture as a nation. We've become violent now amongst each other. I would argue that almost all the violence has been from the left against the right, and the right really isn't retaliating or starting much, but this continues in this way, there will be retaliations. I mean, that's just the human nature. And I wanted to add the fact, based in light of what we've seen in Los Angeles, that while we know, many of you may know, even if you're just a casual historian or student of history, you may know that while there was violence between the pro-slavers and anti-slavers in Kansas and some of the other territories in the United States leading up to the Civil War, there was also ballot stuffing. Ballot stuffing was part of the conflict. It was a weapon used in the conflict, and here we are. You know, when I hear about ballot stuffing and specifically about the use of homeless people on Skid Row, that's a neighbor that they call that area in Los Angeles, which has been caught on video, but it was also where these mail-in ballots came in predominantly for Nithya Raman. It reminds me of the story of Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe, the great poet and novelist, one of the great writers in American history. Brilliant person, by the way. You know, a lot of people note that he got into all these great universities and got kicked out. He never got kicked out for being a bad student. He got kicked out for gambling, for other stuff like that. Probably being creepy. All kidding aside, Edgar Allan Poe was like one of those people on Skid Row that we saw in Los Angeles, forced to vote. That's how Edgar Allan Poe died. He was suffering from the effects of rabies, which is, by the way, excruciating, apparently. And instead of getting him help, the Democrats in Baltimore took him on Election Day and ran him in and out of the ballot box 100 times. And then they just threw him on the street where he died. Lovely story. But, you know, when you hear about people going to Skid Row in Los Angeles, and instead of helping these homeless people, instead of maybe trying to get them into a program, maybe becoming advocates for drug rehab and better mental health care in this country, you're just using them as literal fodder, almost literal fodder, to just have them help you balance ballot stuff and harvest ballots. It's cruelty. In addition to fraud, it's real human cruelty. How does a person go into a homeless area and just say, here's a couple of bucks, sign this ballot, and then go home? How do you do that? What kind of person are you? I've always wondered about that. Who were the people who used Edgar Allan Poe in that way, who was in excruciating pain, and decided, oh, here's a guy we can get who won't give us much resistance when we try to get him. You know, it was called running repeaters in the 19th century. They used to say repeaters because they would just run them into the ballot, the voting booth 100 times. Anyway, that's what made me think of. And then the last personal story is, as some of you know, I've written about this. I wrote an editorial about it for CNBC years ago. My great-great-grandfather was a notorious Chicago mobster turned politician named Morris Eller. And more is coming out about him now that a lot of the out-of-print papers are now available on the internet. We know a lot more about my great-great-grandfather Morris Eller than we used to. We knew a lot about him, though. My grandmother was his favorite granddaughter, I think, person in the whole world. So I knew a lot of about him. And he was involved in a lot of vote rigging stuff in Chicago in the early 20th century. And one of the more brilliant things he did to influence elections was actually not rig any votes. He would kidnap the people from the Democratic Party. He was a Republican. He would kidnap the people from the Democratic Party who were looking to stuff the ballot box, put them up at a hotel in Chicago at gunpoint, feed them well, and then let them go after election day was over. It's actually a brilliant way to quote-unquote rig an election. Just stop the other guys from doing it. But, folks, vote rigging happens. It's silly to think that it doesn't. That was the big argument in America, and they're still trying to say, well, there's no proof in L.A. Yes, there is. There's proof. We have video proof. And we also have common sense. And if you want to be the nudnik who says, well, you don't have proof of every single ballot, then, you know, fine. So, then be that person's lawyer in court. Is there enough evidence to put someone in jail over it in a court of law? I don't know. But I'm glad that we have higher standards in the courts for that. That's fine. But we know that this election was stolen. And we know that this election involved people with the lowest moral character. Who the heck goes into Skid Row in Los Angeles and says, you know, let me help these people. No, I'm not going to help them. I'm going to have them, here's a couple bucks, sign a bunch of these ballots. Here's one for Rahman, one for Bass. Thank you very much. Here's two, if three, however many they did. Just disgusting stuff. Once again, if you're just joining us and you don't know, the United States has resumed attacks on Iran right now. I don't think this is the big one. I don't think this is back to the major military engagement that we had before the April ceasefire. And we're hearing as much from Pete Hegseth, our Secretary of War, who's saying that we're tapping, quote, tapping Iran, like giving him a tap on the shoulder instead of an anvil on the head. You get the point. Tony in Clifton, New Jersey, you think the Democrats are just after Trump. Yeah, I think that that's really the only thing they believe in, that they don't like Trump.
So, hi, Jake. So what I was going to say, though, is I think it's more than that. I think the Democratic Party is holding on for dear life. I think when you have a president as efficient in business and in politics and in everything as President Trump, he's someone who has got to get taken out of their way. Clearly, he has done so much, Jake, to straighten out the problems of past presidents and then the 4 years of Biden. He's amazing. So any president who follows him, who can even come close to what he's doing, is going to be a threat to them.
Well, he's shining a light on something. You know, a lot of this is business as usual in Washington has been disrupted by Trump. So it's not, you know, calling the people who hate Trump leftists, I think, is incorrect. Some of them are, but I think a lot of them are just political class types, which is why there have been a couple of prominent Republicans, not prominent, but Republicans who've also been upended by him or really angered by him, because there's a business as usual culture in D.C. that the president's not upholding. He's not letting everyone have their little duchies and have their money here and have their privileges there. He's really making it clear that everything that they have been enjoying is going to go away. And there are people who are yearning for that old days. I'll talk about the Republicans first. There are members of the Republican Party who yearn for the era of 2014 to 2016, or in some cases 2010 to 2016, when they were the minority at one point, but then they were majority in half of Congress, then they got all of Congress after the 2014 elections. But here's the thing. When your party is in charge of Congress and the other party has the White House, you don't have to do anything. You can just be His Majesty's loyal opposition. And you can get on Fox News and you can get on some of these other radio programs and just complain and not have to do anything and get a bunch of speaking engagements and make your money doing X, Y, and Z. It's the life of Riley, which is why I think a lot of Republicans weren't all in on winning the 2016 election. They would have been fine with losing it, most of them, the establishment Republicans, I mean. And why I think a lot of people have had their noses taken out or out of joint by President Trump. And not all of it is everything, and not all of it is great policy, but it doesn't matter. The game these people have been playing as a political class that thinks that they deserve certain honorifics and privileges is just not right. It's just not right. And you also have a president now, and this leads me to the other story, which I think is really interesting. You have a president now who is not giving corrupt leaders of states that will never vote for him or his party, he's not giving them a pass. Here in New York, President Trump is not giving Kathy Hochul and the Democrats, basically saying, you know what, I know this is your state, we'll never win here, whatever, we'll move on somewhere else. I'll focus on foreign policy. It's been very interesting to me in the last couple of days seeing this back and forth between Hochul and Tom Homan about whether or not there's going to be a surge of ICE agents in this state to get after these violent, criminal, illegal aliens who know if you go to these sanctuary cities and states, before President Trump was president, they knew they weren't going to get touched at all. Now that he's president, they know there's a chance that the politicians will just defend them no matter what. And now you have Kathy Hochul trying to do this tough gal routine that she does. And I'm not saying it doesn't fit her because she's a woman. There have been some tough gals in American politics who could pull it off. I'm thinking of a couple of them, like, Senator Barbara Mikulski. Look her up if you don't know who I'm talking about. She was a Democrat, and she was a woman, and she was tough as nails. And her tough act was for real. Okay, I think she could have played linebacker for the Steelers in 1975. You know what I mean? She was rough. But she meant it. Kathy Hochul's tough gal routine doesn't work. And here she is trying to be a tough gal with Tom Homan. Listen to this.
While we're walking and talking, Jason, let's just, everyone give us some space. If everyone can block up a couple feet.
Can we ask you about Tom Homan's threat to send ICE?
Hang on.
Can we ask you about Tom Homan's threat made on Fox News?
Yes, you can ask me about that.
He said that they'll be coming. Is he lying?
He's going in a different direction than what the president said he wanted to have happen. So I think it's more he's got to take that up with President Trump. President Trump told me to my face in a room full of governors that when he was asked about the lessons of Minneapolis, Mr. President, what are the lessons of Minneapolis? And he says, We're not going where we're not welcome. And he looked over at me. It's the governor of the state of New York at this meeting, and he says, for example, I will not go to New York unless Kathy asks. And I said, I'm not asking, so we're good. I'm not asking now. That'll never happen because they saw what happened in Minneapolis. They saw the chaos and literally the murder of 2 innocent civilians who were just simply exercising their right to protest. So,
yeah, that's libel. The people in Minneapolis who were killed were not murdered. First of all, you don't know what murder means. Requires malice aforethought. There was no such thing. They were both threatened and attacked by the people who got killed. And President Trump didn't make a blanket promise, oh, we'll never go in. Things have gotten out of hand here. It's become a magnet for more violent criminals. We're seeing people in this city killed and threatened by violent illegal immigrants. And so all bets are off, Kathy. And later on, she said there won't be a Republican left standing in the state if this happens. Also, ICE doesn't bring the chaos. Stop blaming. That's really, I mean, it's like blaming a rape victim or blaming someone who has a nice watch for their robbery. ICE is there to arrest violent criminals, and professional protest groups filled with people who are kind of deranged go in and look to poke them and look to agitate them and put themselves in harm's way. ICE is not causing the problem. It's just a slander. And it's disgusting. It's disgusting. Stop. But sometimes things work out pretty well. I'm very happy with another story that's been percolating around the country. And that is, this didn't get a lot of coverage, and it really should, especially this time of year when we have high school graduations going on and people sending off their kids to universities pretty soon. Kash Patel, the FBI director, announcing that a group of people at the University of Michigan, some of them students, some of them outside agitators, whatever you want to call them, after the October 7th attacks in Israel, started to harass officials at the University of Michigan, and they harass students too, although this particular charge doesn't include that as much. And they've been arrested, and they've been indicted, and they are accused of a bunch of things, including witness tampering, the whole thing. And good for Kash Patel. You know, the University of Michigan is an interesting place, and you can see why it's so attractive to these terrorist groups and their friends. Because it's in Michigan, which has our largest Arab American population for a state. At the same time, it's filled with a lot of Jewish students. University of Michigan continues to attract a lot of Jewish students across the country, particularly here in the New York area, particularly in larger Jewish communities in Chicago and Los Angeles. And you can see why they want to agitate there. Same reason why they go after Columbia. In a city with a large Jewish population, and there's always been a large Jewish population at Columbia University, although it's been shrinking recently. Did you see any of these kinds of really nasty protests at Notre Dame or the University of Alabama or Liberty University? No. No Jews, no news. So good for Kash Patel making that move. Andrew in New Jersey. You want to talk about Kathy Hochul?
Kathy Hochul and the tough guy routine, the tough girl. I'm surprised your call screener, he's old enough or not old enough, but he knows the reference from the Honeymooners. Harvey, she always reminds me of, remember Harvey, the big guy that wanted to fight Ralph?
Yeah.
Like a big bully.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't even remind me of a woman drunk, but she reminds me of a man that's drunk and in a bar that wants to pick a fight with you for no reason. Like I'll straighten you out, Jaden. We go outside. So I always think of that. But Stefanik really chopped her down nicely in the hearing when she said you don't remember your first ever executive order and you gave amnesty to this person who then lit a person on fire in the subway and you don't remember that person. Like she just totally silenced the bully. So it was awesome.
You know, I'll say one other thing. There was a time in America, like 5 minutes ago, when any state being told that the feds were going to come in and take care of some of their more violent criminal population, either take them out of their prisons and put them somewhere else or get them rounded up in the first place, where every governor of every state getting that news would have danced a jig. Thank God you're taking money off the table for me that I don't have to spend anymore on this. Thank goodness. And these people are illogically against it right now. All right, we're going to come back. I want to talk about the Knicks and the whole story about President Trump's visit to MSG, and we got the truth about that from the Knicks owner today. I'll be right back here on the Stone Zone.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
It is a great, great person, Roger Stone.
The Stone Zone.
Call 877 Cars for Kids to reach a friendly live agent. Donation is super easy, and your car can be picked up as soon as tomorrow. Call us now or go to carsforkids.org.
Donate your car today.
Did you know you can donate real estate too?
Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Cop Talk, hosted by Kevin Schroeder.
Richie Sharp, Jonathan Diller was killed in the line of duty. Blood. Disgusting. And he got off on the top charge, this murderer. He got off.
Yeah.
You got to be kidding me. Meanwhile, you're trying to get this perpetrator in handcuffs. You shouldn't have to worry about anything. The public, instead of standing there, taking a video, should be maybe helping the police officer.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
June is Men's Health Month. Red Apple Audio Networks is proud to recognize Men's Health Month. A reminder that taking care of your health is one of the strongest things you can do.
This is Dominic Carter. Taking care of your health starts with prevention. Many serious health conditions, including like what I have, high blood pressure, diabetes, but also heart disease and certain cancers can develop without obvious symptoms. That's why annual checkups are so important. A simple visit to your doctor can help identify issues early when they're often easier to treat. Trust me, I know. This month, take a moment to schedule any overdue appointments, review your medications, know your numbers like blood pressure and cholesterol. Staying healthy isn't just about adding years to your life, it's about improving the quality of those years.
Join Red Apple Audio Networks in supporting healthier lives for men everywhere. Learn more about Men's Health Month and take charge of your health today. The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
Roger Stone, who's a very, one of the smartest political minds. Roger Stone was persecuted. People forget he's actually a brilliant political analyst.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
I'm Jake Novak filling in for Roger Stone this evening. The people who obsessively hate Donald Trump are really sick. They just don't know when to stop and inject their political stuff into every little thing. Here's James Dolan, the owner of the New York Knicks, earlier today explaining why the watch party was canceled outside of MSG before Game 3.
Look, let's just talk about the Game 3, right? Mm-hmm. Right. The Secret Service didn't demand this stuff.
Okay.
It was NYPD, and it was really the commissioner's office.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It would have made more sense if it was the Secret Service.
It would have, right?
Because we could accept that. We don't like it, but we would have accepted it.
But no, this was the commissioner's plan all along. She just used the president coming as an excuse to set it up. But look, let's just.
This reminds me of the way the Palestinians are. They literally let their own people die in large numbers so they can blame it on Israel. They literally decide to let people be disappointed in New York so that they can say it was President Trump's fault. How about just doing good things? You want to hurt? Why don't you do something good and say President Trump didn't want us to do this good thing, but we did it anyway. Instead, it's all negative. These people are just really, really sick, and I'm tired of it. Really, I didn't like Barack Obama, and I didn't like pretty much every one of his policies. I can think of only one I liked. I liked when he ordered the surge in Afghanistan. Other than that, I can't think of anything. I swear to God, I didn't go to sleep at night thinking about him, positively or negatively, almost ever. I didn't think about him all that much. I was doing another program that many of you hear on these channels, The Left versus the Right, with a former Governor David Patterson. And he asked me to make kind of a psychological profile of Barack Obama, and I obliged him. But I kind of regret it because I never really think about what's going on in his mind. I just didn't like his policies. And then I just kind of thought about something else. These people who obsess with everything Trump, it's just like, geez, get a life. You don't like his policies, then think about that and think about how you would do better. That would be a constructive thing to do. Not, hey, Trump's coming to the game. Let's cancel these watch parties that people really love. Say it was Trump who did it, and then they'll not like Trump too. And that accomplishes what exactly? He's not running again, guys. I'm not really sure what that accomplishes other than just spreading the pain. Spreading the pain. It's ugly. It's pathetic. Please stop. I am yearning for people who will have a more positive outlook. I'm Jake Novak filling in for Roger Stone tonight. Thank you for this hour.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Roger Stone here. Your dollars are losing ground, but gold isn't. American Sovereign Bullion helps you protect your wealth through real, tangible assets. Through their nationwide wholesaler network, you get some of the best pricing on gold and silver delivered straight to your door. Since 1912, the U.S. dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power. Meanwhile, gold continues to prove its strength. So call 844-272-2428. That's 844-272-2428. Or visit dyingdollar.com to request your free gold and silver guide. That's dyingdollar.com.